So here's a huge question. Did we evolve all on our own, or did we have a little help? Today, we're diving into a theory that's as wild as it gets. The idea that our very DNA might have been engineered by visitors from another world. Let's get into it.
This whole thing really kicks off with a massive puzzle. For millions and millions of years, our ancient ancestors' progress was, well, it was a crawl. They used the same basic stone tools generation after generation. But then, almost overnight in evolutionary terms, a switch just flipped. Bam! Something happened, and humanity took this incredible leap forward.
And look at this timeline. It lays out the mystery perfectly. You see millions of years of just slow, gradual change. And then, around 50,000 years ago, there's this sudden explosion. We're talking complex language, incredible art, sophisticated tools. It's a genuine quantum leap that has baffled scientists for a long, long time. What on earth flipped that switch? Well, to even begin to find an answer, ancient alien theorists say we need to look at the cradle of civilization itself, ancient Sumeria. Their ancient texts describe a powerful race of beings who, they said, came down from the heavens. They called them the Anunnaki. Now, the story goes that the Anunnaki weren't just out here exploring for fun. They were on a desperate mission. Their homeworld, a planet they called Nibiru, was in big trouble. Its atmosphere was literally falling apart, and their scientists figured out a last-ditch solution. They needed to spray fine-spun gold into their upper atmosphere to save their planet. So their hunt for all that gold, it brought them right here, to a primitive but very resource-rich Earth. They set up shop in what would eventually become Mesopotamia and started this massive, world-spanning mining operation to get the one thing that could save their entire civilization. Now, at first, the Anunnaki didn't get their own hands dirty. Nope. They brought along a worker race, the Igigi, who did all the backbreaking labor in the mines. And they did it for an unbelievable amount of time, 150,000 years. But the work was just brutal, and the conditions were awful. So, of course, the Igigi eventually revolted. Now the Anunnaki are facing a full-blown labor crisis that threatens their entire mission. So what do? Well, the Anunnaki leadership came up with a pretty radical solution. They would create a brand new worker, one that they would engineer themselves by mixing their own advanced DNA with the most promising creature on the planet at the time, early man.
And this, according to the theory, is where we come in, Homo sapiens. We were supposedly created, literally, in the image of our gods, to be their perfect, obedient workforce. And that single act of genetic engineering, that could be the explanation for that sudden, mysterious leap in our intelligence and our consciousness.
Okay, so that is a wild story, right? But, and this is a huge but, it's really important to know where this whole narrative actually comes from, because it pretty much all traces back to the work of one very controversial author. His name was Zecharia Sitchin. And here's the thing, he wasn't a historian or a linguist by trade, he was an economist who taught himself how to read ancient Sumerian cuneiform. In 1976, he published his really radical translations in his book, The 12th Planet. And just to be clear, mainstream scholars and academics completely reject his work. And you can see right here how the whole theory can pivot on just a single word. Sitchin translated Anunnaki to mean those who from the heavens came. But pretty much every other Sumerian scholar agrees it actually means something more like royal blood or princely seed, referring to their family of gods, not visitors from outer space. And honestly, the disagreements don't stop there. Scholars are quick to point out that the original texts don't talk about spaceships or mining gold to save an atmosphere. And the word Nibiru, they say it most likely refers to a crossing point in the sky, like first solstice, not some undiscovered planet. Basically, all these key details are Sitchin's unique interpretations, and that's why the academic community doesn't support them. So if the text part of the evidence is so shaky, is that it? Case closed? Well, not exactly. Proponents of this theory argue that you don't even need the texts. They say you just have to look at the physical artifacts that have been found all over the world, artifacts that they claim defy any conventional explanation. For instance, you have the Paracas skulls from Peru. Just look at them. Hundreds of these incredibly strange, elongated skulls have been found. They're thousands of years old, and their shape is it's not like a normal human skull. But the real kicker is what they found locked inside their DNA.
When they ran DNA tests back in 2014, the results were, well, pretty mind-bending. They found mitochondrial DNA that didn't come from South America at all. It was native to the Middle East. And not just anywhere in the Middle East, specifically the region of ancient Mesopotamia, right in the heartland of the whole Anunnaki story. Now that is a genuine historical puzzle.
And then you've got carvings like this one. This is the sarcophagus lid of the great Mayan king, Pakal. Now, on one hand, mainstream archaeologists say it shows the king's journey into the underworld. But on the other hand, you have people like author Eric von Daniken who look at this and see something totally different. A man at the controls of some kind of machine, a rocket ship, with his hands on the controls and flames shooting out the back. So ancient carvings are one thing, and they're open to interpretation. But this story doesn't just end in the distant past. In fact, it brings us right up to today with high-tech, officially documented evidence. The conversation has shifted from ancient history to modern national security. I mean, think about this. Starting in 2017, the Pentagon did something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. It officially released videos shot by its own Navy fighter pilots and confirmed that, yes, it has a program to study what it now calls Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAPs. This isn't a conspiracy theory anymore, it's a fact. Let's talk about the famous Tic Tac incident from 2004. Navy radar first picks up an object way up at 80,000 feet. The next thing you know, fighter jets are sent to check it out, and it drops to just above the ocean in, get this, less than a couple of seconds. A maneuver that is simply impossible for any technology we know of. And this is really the core of the modern mystery, right? You have Navy pilots, some of the best in the world, and all their advanced sensor data reporting these objects that just break the laws of physics as we know them. They have no wings, no exhaust, and they move in ways that, according to our science, should tear them apart. So where does that leave us? Look, the ancient texts translated by Sitchin, they're definitely controversial. We have to acknowledge that. But these weird physical artifacts, and maybe more importantly, these modern military encounters, those are real, and they're officially unexplained. So the big question is, if our own government is admitting it's tracking things it can't identify now, does that change how we should look at the stories from our ancestors? Maybe they weren't just myths. Maybe they were just trying to describe something they simply didn't have the words for. And that possibility is what keeps this whole debate very much alive.